Okay, for this video, I'm just going to get right into things. Absolutely no shenanigans this time. Hey everyone, I'm Caliga, and I've got a question for you. Would you buy a Wii game for £20? I know, I can hear your displeasement and the shrill, disagreeing cries that kind of sound like... But that's the same as a Tommy Tippy Advanced Anti-Colic Bottles at Tesco's.com, I hear you say. Well, I did it anyway. I paid a Wii game for 20 quid when I decided to get Coraline the video game after watching the film and saying to myself, hey, this could make for a pretty good horror game. Too bad that this film didn't have any tie-ins. But it did! And by gosh, we're looking at it today. Even if it is all in the vain hope that the time I spent playing it will be worth it. So, was it worth the extortionate price? Let's find out. So after getting through the title screen and a clip of the opening scene, we start off with a strange storytelling choice that I can only attribute to laziness. So instead of introducing the characters in a normal, organic way, it has an opening cutscene explaining the backstory of Coraline's family, the neighbours and the basic character dynamics. And then when we're introduced to all the characters for the first time in the game, the dialogue acts like we're fully aware of who they are. But it's not really that important because there's a lot more ways this game's going to ruin the story as it goes on. But as soon as the game actually gets going, the first thing you're probably going to notice is the music. Despite the general disconnect between a lot of this game and the film, I think the music is actually incredibly nice for the most part. It kind of gives me an Alice in Wonderland vibe, with the theme for the house having both upbeat and homely parts to it, as well as subtle elusive tones that just work. But getting back to the actual game, the tutorial just really tells you everything about the Jones family dynamic. Mum's making me push down drawers, boxes.
Why don't you try to move that box over there?
And Dad's telling me to fuck off and go count some blue shit. And this blue shit is important, so it's a good thing he did. Because probably the most important thing you need to know about the Coraline game is that across the area of a level, you can find plenty of mini games to do in order to earn blue buttons, which you can use in the shop to buy things that I'll get into later. And oh gosh and golly, are these games just the most fun things in the world. In this opening area, you can find such riveting bonuses as doing whatever this is, watching an animation of stomping on bugs, and organising the fucking alphabet. But it's time to move on now, so after gassing everyone inside the house for all that forced child labour, it's time to meet the blue neighbour, I guess. And doesn't the overworld just look swell? Well, I guess it is a 2009 licensed game. I can't say I even expected this much. But yeah, Mr. B. He gives Coraline an unsolicited slingshot, showing the next quirk that Coraline the game has to offer. A whole gaggle of gameplay types to switch around between. So far, at least from just the story, we've had block pushing, collecting, item interaction and basic platforming. But now with the slingshot we have some TPS third-person shooter action to do with this stupid apple shooting timing minigame.
Come sit down and play Go Fish with us, Caroline.
Wow, I didn't realise when on the cover of the film it said beware of what you wish for, it was actually talking about me. I wished for a good Coraline game, and instead I got a luck-driven card game. When I did my first Let's Play of this game, I spent around 10 minutes trying to beat this, which may not sound that long, but when you're just sitting there, staring at this, and just trying to get lucky and move on with the game that you spent 20 fucking quid on, it feels like an eternity. But anyways, I was going to complain severely, but I beat it first time playing it again, so it's not really that hard, it's just incredibly luck-based and bullshit. And that doesn't make for good gameplay design. I'll tell you, after I won, that screen might have said "Fantastonishing," but it sure didn't feel like a victory to me. It just felt like pain. Whatever, get levels over now, get out of the basement and over to the start of the film where the real game began. Blah 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 YB, blah 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 poison rod, blah 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 my mum won't accept my gift of milk so I faced through the laptop. Wait, can I actually do this? Is this gonna happen? Wait, climb the table, climb the table, climb the table.
It's time for you to go to bed. Go up there.
I'm having fun with this. But now that we're getting into the other house, I'd like to show you the prime example of the depths of the developer's laziness. Take a look at this cutscene. Try and ignore the shit screenshot quality or the stupid faces. And look at the colour. It's bright, vibrant and orange, and that basically reflects how the other world is portrayed in the film. But when we get into gameplay, it's just a little bit less beige than the normal world. However, even in Coraline's dream world where everything is to her liking, there's still menial tasks to be done, like finding some ingredients for some epic cooking gameplay. And there's a D-pad rhythm minigame too, which for anyone who's counting is like the 7th gameplay method so far in the first hour of the game. And what even is this song anyways? With all the original songs from the film presumably at their disposal, this shitty basic loop was what they chose to use? Even in the overworld you can hear the other father butt notes into the cheery music like it ain't anyone's business. And speaking of music, when going through the games against other YB, the pretty soothing hide-and-seek theme just decided to stop, leaving only the repetitive ticking of the timer as I ran around looking for the right hiding spot. That wasn't until I found YB and the next game commenced, leading to this incredible anthem where, as compressed as the music was, it kept peaking at an incredible volume, making sure that what was already a not too fun segment was like the worst thing to sit through ever. This seems to be a problem that the game suffers from throughout, from Spink and Forcible's apartment to the entire outside of the other world. It sounds like they took the versions of the music from the DS port and upscaled them to fit the Wii, if that's even how that works. And seeing as you'll spend quite a bit of time running around in the other world, well, I hope you like going deaf. But one positive that I want to mention about this game so far, because I have been largely critical, is how this game builds atmosphere. And for a licensed Wii game that is intended to be played in 4x3, it does fit pretty well. Going around the real flat, even if everything on the screen is mostly dull and beige, the music perfectly manages to create an atmosphere that there's just something a little more to things than what you're seeing. I guess this could be seen as being helped by the fact that the game has no permanent HUD. Coraline's health, held item and objective are locked behind a button press. So in a way, the game does have a permanent element of secrecy that requires a little more intuition from the player. Again, this could play to the fact that most of the game's overworld and the various rooms of the Pink Palace are filled with little mini-games usually just outside of the beaten path. Even stuff like the football game that isn't indicated at all, that lead to blue buttons that unlock the bonus content. So the result of the lack of obstructive handholding could make the game a celebration of childlike curiosity that is such a prevalent theme throughout the film and the original novella. Sure, I'm probably looking way too deep into this, but my point remains that although the game has its flaws, it certainly isn't terrible. Well, not yet, anyways. And as for the element of horror, this is more prevalent across the other world levels, although certainly things like the claw hand image around the item and health displays, and the barren Silent Hill-esque nature of the outside hints that something isn't quite right here. Of course, this is given away a little more by the introductory cutscene, the holding on the claw in the pancake mixture, the changing portrait of the other mother into the beldam, and, you know, the fact everyone has buttons for eyes. But it really comes to the forefront in the nightmare sections, as I'll call them, which are the dark areas at the end of each otherworld level where you have to solve a puzzle to progress, but also don't resemble anything from the film. Of course, unless you find the annoying overlapping sound effects coming from enemy rats scary, or else music that can just peak a little bit too loudly unnerving, these sections usually aren't scary at all, and are largely just monotonous. Whether it's literally just walking down a path holding a lantern that makes you immortal, or just running away from everything. But at least that has a little cool spook at the end. No! What the fuck? So after that horrifying hand grab and trying to protest to Mother about it, for some reason I've got to sneak outside of the house because some bullshit, I guess. Hell, the game's only 4 hours long as it is. Makes sense that there's going to be some padding. But remember, There is nothing more fun than walking around a house only to find locked doors for a whole minute. And now we get into that block puzzle part I talked about. It's not even like this is just pushing blocks like it's in Skylanders or something, where it's quick, it's not that very fun, but it'll get done quickly. It's something that actually requires a little bit of thought to finish, which doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, this is still moving blocks around in a farmhouse, which is repeated in the next day section, but it's just a little bit longer there. Whatever, I don't even care about this day's fake plot. Let's just get through it and get to night 2. So Babinski's tied up in beetroot vines for some reason, probably because of YB picking vegetables or something. And then he proceeds to cement himself as the antagonist of the game by launching rocket-propelled beats at Coraline, and then fucking laughing about it. So she goes home in a hissy fit so we can get back to the other world, which already looks a lot better because of the packed dinner table that you travel through with the gravy train that is literally on rails. But hey, it does look pretty cool. Presumably to make up for her shitty day, the other mother lets Coraline and Wybie go to Babinski's mouse circus, which, while sounding cool, has a pretty unfriendly reception with all the killer animals outside. But if all the build-up made you think this might be fun, oh boy! Because unfun is definitely the theme of this section. Along with matching games, whether that's Snap, but against the clock instead of an opponent. Not that there's another person in the scene who could have been that or anything. Which means that Pirate Seas now has a rival for the worst luck-based mechanic in any video game. Or whether that's doing whatever this is supposed to be. However, I did get all the trivia right for this mouse's quiz. So because of that, I'm going to have to say that this side trip was worth it. So as Coraline wakes up after the horrifying Snapdragon shit and the unattentive other parents that didn't realise she'd already been to the circus, it is at this point where we can breathe a sigh of something. Because, surprise, surprise, the third day is also not anything interesting. After finding Babinski's pin number in the barn for some reason, because I think the developers forgot Spink and Forcible were characters, we can go up into his house for some reason to do some acrobatics.
Right.
As weird as it may sound, it's actually even stranger to see on screen, as is this strange juggling minigame. Much like with the pushing blocks around, here we learn that pressing buttons isn't all that much fun either. But, back in the other world, you get a ticket to go to Spink and Forcible's performance, so I guess that's what I'm gonna go do next.
Do not go through the door.
Well, sometimes that... Oh, that's just how it works out for you, doesn't it? Sometimes you just get killed by a fucking porcupine. Wow, you've got this horrifying image in your brain forever. Alright, I have a message for all of you here. The dogs cannot die. I repeat, they are impervious to the kick. And for some reason, no one here has buttons for eyes, apart from YB. And it seems their version of fun is one of the worst things I have ever played. Maybe this is why these two aren't in the game as much, because every time they show up, it always sucks. This minigame is near impossible, with you having to try and balance along on a short track, whilst holding a power meter to fire a ball, whilst trying to hit the moving tiny hitbox of the Spink and Forcible, the green woman, whichever one she is, I always forget, whilst on a time limit, and you've got to do all of that 7 times. However, after all that noise, here we are, in the first sections of the endgame now. Button Eye Gift, Evil Grabby Hand, Evil Screeching Mother, and oppressive compressed music. Woo! Here we go! And surprisingly, even though this isn't the most complex thing in the world, this is probably the best of the 3 nightmare sections in the game. It is really just walking down a corridor holding the fireflies up and occasionally pushing a block onto a magic switch. But its atmosphere is pretty good with the small confined hallway and the constant danger from the plants, animals, and the Beldam's grabby hand, but it was just a little bit less tedious to play than everything else. Wait, a YB loading screen? I don't remember him from this part of the film, but it's not like continuity has been represented that well thus far. Like, even though there have been 2 Babinski sections in the day across the game, they couldn't even be bothered to add the final interaction between Coraline and Spink and Forcible, meaning that one of the key elements of the finale, the Adder Stone, isn't even in the game. But I'm getting a bit ahead, so let's just head off to the orchard. I assume it means the garden, see whatever it is we've got to do.
Mom? Dad?
What?
Oh, what? Why does he look like that? Here it is, everyone. The penultimate game mechanic is zooming down on a mini game with some quick time events just for good measure. And now I'm not quite sure why this is in the game, but all I know that is if you're getting told this
You should get some help, Jonesy, if you know what I mean.
by someone who looks like a puppet corpse as much as Wybie does in this scene, that just really reflects badly on you as an individual, quite frankly.
Even with parents made of pillows, Coraline went to bed lonely.
Alright, I have to admit, this scene still conveys some of the emotions of the film pretty well. At least it would have done if I hadn't seen it earlier. And from now on, these short cutscenes actually start to look better, and not just like botched screenshots from a pirated copy of the film. But now it's time. This is the segment that started it all, and is the very part that I thought whilst watching it for the first time would make a good horror game. The Beldam's challenge to find all 3 eyes of the children she has trapped. And so far, seeing as we're just being plopped into the garden, things aren't looking so good. Although the scope of the fight against the other father is alright, with Coraline straight up getting murdered in the game over, it's really just a tedious series of orderly quick time events set to a strange dance choreography by Coraline. But even at the end, when the whole garden should have turned monochromatic, it's still colourful in the game. Hey, at least the garden environment looks nice. Number 2. In Spink and Forcible's theatre that's all dark and spooky, it's actually been a subject of philosophical debate over the years about what can logically be defined as gameplay. But whatever that is, I don't think this is it. After touching the candy straight out of Mario Party 8, all you have to do is walk over a tightrope with the flying dog bats as theoretical enemies, or obstacles, anything, with the actual action sequence being relegated to the slideshow at the end.
Wonderful. And
as for the final eye in the mouse circus, will ever played Temple Run? One of those games where you literally just run. That's kind of it, but you just follow a rat whilst running. At least all that shit with the slingshot finally paid off in a really arbitrary way, so I guess Chekhov would be happy with that. And now, the final boss fight with the Beldam is ready for all to see. After getting right to the cat throwing trick through a series of very horrifying images, it's time to actually play against the main monster head on. And oh dear. It's just button presses that require very specific timings. Alright. It's like a few seconds ago when I said that thing about Chekhov, I actually feel that in some way this moment is a culmination of the rest of the game. Yeah, definitely actually. It's the last final sting to the player after all of the stupid stuff that has been peppered throughout the game. The Go Fish game, the double block pushing sections, the cannon game, and every single rhythm section in this 4-hour train wreck. All culminated in having to press buttons fast. So yeah, this is a thing. And as if that wasn't fun enough, to escape the collapsing otherworld, you've got to climb up a spider web whilst avoiding falling beetle furniture, I think, and getting around these holes that, when you're looking at a relatively dim TV screen in broad daylight, in a black and dark blue layout, it's just not that fun. And then the game is over. Well, first you have to limply pull on a door whilst the Beldam also tugs very gently on the door, and either jump scares your face if you button press wrong, or just stops trying and lets Coraline win, meaning everything's good in the world and the story's over as the children are, well, freed? I guess? We never find out, and that's barely the focus of this portion of the game. And the saving of the Jones parents is relegated only to the cutscenes. Fuck this. So that's Coraline the video game, a game programmed by 5 whole people that is both a jack of all trades yet a master of none, and is an exercise in tedium that probably barely qualifies as a game. It's not all bad, as I've stated throughout the video, but it's nowhere near strong enough to be worth the 20 quid I paid. It's not even really worth going back through again in the unnamed New Game Plus-esque mode, where you restart the game with all your buttons and unlock shit, but just at the beginning again, because half of the unlockables are cheats for skipping past levels or helping to make certain portions easier, which is pointless at this point because you've already beaten the game already. And I can't really tell what the last two do because apparently no one on Earth is stupid to try to do that anywhere on the internet. Oh wait, I said to talk about that, didn't I? Well, the store's not really that impressive. Spending your blue buttons can lead to 3 alternate costumes, Coraline's outfit from the other mother, her pyjamas, or the outfit at the end, which all should have really been unlocked by default during the story. The cutscenes that you can find throughout the game for a staggering 200 buttons, which is half of what I managed to get throughout my whole playthrough, or just pictures from throughout the game, either from the cutscenes or the little random ones where Coraline's in costumes. So that's that, we've basically covered everything. I really don't think I've got much left in me anymore to give amazing closing thoughts, so I'll just say this. It'd probably be a good time for children interested in the film, but then again, what isn't really good for children? Because it's got a runtime of about 3.5 hours, at least for me, which is relatively short, it's a lot more tolerable than it otherwise could have been. But really, playing this game gave me quite a few good moments of both anger and of laughter, even if it did dash my hopes of there being a good Coraline horror game out there. So, even though the answer to this video's title isn't a very positive one, it's a big fat no, at the end of the day, can you really put a price on fun? Well, I'm going to, and 20 quid is some hefty stuff, as are the exorbitant prices for the other versions, and this much fun isn't really worth it. Thanks so much for watching, absolutely go watch the film, and I'll see you all again in whatever I decide to put out in the future. Toodle adieu. Because Coraline, she combined words throughout the game. Why did she do it? What? She didn't even do that in the film. Why did she combine words? It's not even like a thing.